watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 147, using dGrowl with XPages, sending messages to your users. Okay, just a couple quick announcements. I think I had more, but I kind of forgot what they were. I will be speaking at MWLUG at the end of August. So I'm going to talk more about that in a future show and kind of give the abstract out and all those details and stuff. So if you do happen to go to MWLUG, then stop by and say hi. I'd appreciate that. I've been kind of behind in my Notes9 for a little bit. It's the whole summer and all that day job stuff and all that. But I'm sitting on a bunch of great shows. I'm going to try to get out relatively soon. So hopefully we're going to hit this hot and heavy. There's some great content coming out, and I hope you stay tuned. Today's show is really interesting, and that's from none other than Brad Balassaitis. I put the phonetical spelling on there because he did that in his demo, because apparently I screwed up his name in a previous show, and that really shouldn't be that surprising, quite honestly. But I do apologize for that, and I'll hopefully not do that in the future, but I make no promises. Because it's me, and you get what you pay for. So anyway, here's Brad. Brad works at the great PSC group with a excellent XPages development team, and they do other technologies as well. His blog, you can find him at accelerant.net, and he's on Twitter, and he is I would say kind of famous for his in-depth dojo series, not just on the dojo data grid, which I've highlighted here, at least some of them. He's probably done some more since I made this slide, but just dojo overall. He's really an expert in client-side development, and that's really underutilized, I think, in XPages. I know I underutilize it, and I suspect others do as well, because gosh darn it, the server side stuff is just so much easier. But there is more traffic that goes back and forth, and there are reasons when you don't want to use the server side. So it is an important tool to have in your toolbox. All the dojo stuff, and the client side, and jQuery and things like that. What he's going to talk about today is this thing. And I threw up a screenshot here. You've seen these on different websites. You know, you do an action, then it just pops up. Sometimes it's called a toaster. Sometimes it's called Growl. Is an app on the Mac. I know that does that. So this is a show about how to get these pop-up messages to appear. And dGrowl, it looks like, is very full featured in that you have different colors for errors, and you can set different times that they live, and all sorts of different stuff like that. So I think it's very interesting. I was actually kind of working on something very similar to this before this video even showed up in the Bootstrap project. So I just wanted to highlight a couple similar examples. Kind of. Mark Lusink has a great post on what he's done, and he has a method that I think spans pages. So basically, if you trigger an action and a page change, like a save and close type of event, then as on the page you land on, then a message will appear. I think that we call that flash scope or something like that. And Tommy Valland has a good post here as well. And here's just a code snippet from Java that I've been playing with using the Bootstrap for XPages project a little bit, where basically you can add messages to a display errors control. So I think the dGrowl stuff is going to supersede everything, especially the stuff I've been working on. But I just wanted to throw that out there in case you had any interest in that, to directly update a display errors control from Java itself. Okay, so with all that being said, let's go to Brad and his demo.
Welcome to NotesIn9. In this episode, we're going to take a look at dGrowl, which is a Dojo plugin that provides Growl-style notifications. My name is Brad Balassaitis. I've included a phonetic pronunciation in here for Mr. Leedy, who had some trouble with it last time. I'm fortunate enough to work with the great XPages development team at PSC Group. I do a lot of blogging about XPages development at accelerant.net, and you can also find me on Twitter at @Balassaitis. So, we're going to look at dGrowl, which provides some nice looking notifications. It's a Dojo plugin, so we can use it without installing any other script libraries such as jQuery or anything else like that. And as a byproduct of seeing how this works, you'll get an understanding of how to include any third-party Dojo plugin in your XPages applications. So before we go too much further into talking about dGrowl, I do just want to mention that there is a module available within Dojo that already does notifications for you. Now, if you haven't seen this, it is called Dojo Toaster. So I just want to demonstrate this so that you can understand what the differences are and what the dGrowl plugin gives you. So the Dojo Toaster plugin here, if I click on it, I get a message in the lower right hand corner of the screen. I can click a few times and it will stack those messages together in a similar area. So they all go away together, they all pop up together. So that solid green was the regular message style. There's also an error message style. Quite frankly, I think the UI of that is an error, but it gives you that same functionality. The messages show up, you can stack multiple messages, and they all go away together. The big problem that we can see here, aside from how that looks, is that if we start mixing these messages, the most recent message, the styling takes over the entire block. So we can mix regular and error messages and keep changing the style. So it'll handle multiple messages, which is nice, but overwriting the style can really confuse the purpose of a message. And then what it does is it gets rid of all the messages at the same time. So if another message is added to the queue, it stacks up with the original set of messages and then they all go away at the same time when the last message is set to expire. So that's the built-in Dojo Toaster functionality. And as we can see, this dGrowl looks a whole lot nicer. But it's even beyond the UI. There are a lot of much nicer features to the dGrowl plugin. Whereas the Dojo Toaster, all the messages were transient. You would have to define how long the message would live, and then it would go away. But dGrowl gives you the ability to create sticky messages, so they will stay there on the screen until the user clicks on the X icon to close them. dGrowl also gives you the ability to create separate channels. So this is nice, and it takes care of that problem that we just saw with the Dojo Toaster, where all the messages kind of got lumped together into the same channel, and the styling would get overwritten when the message style changed. That's certainly not what we would want with our messages. So dGrowl has a much nicer feature to give us separate channels for each type of message. And from there we can queue up however many messages within each channel that we want. But dGrowl gives us the ability to prioritize the channel. So for example, if we always want our error messages to be on top, we can give that priority and all the error messages will stay at the top, and then all the other messages will show up below it. So now that we know that this has a lot of features that we would want to implement, we're going to go through the process and I'll show you how you can do this yourself. So essentially what we want to do, we've got to download the plugin, we want to add it to our NSF to make it available, and then we have to register a module path so that it knows where to find it. After that, we can include the module on our page, we can include the style sheet, and then we'll run a few lines of code to set up the message channels to make them available, and after that we will use code to display messages. So let's take a look at how this works. First we're going to go get the plugin files, and they're available on GitHub. So if you can see this URL up here, this is where we can go to get the files. This is the entire contents of the plugin. There's not a whole lot to it. The key is that we want to click this download zip button here at the bottom of the right hand column. That will give us a zip file of these plugin files down to our hard drive. Now I've already done that and made it available. I've got this folder on my hard drive called Dojo, and then plugins, and then here's the zip file with the dGrowl files in it. So we're going to start by extracting them, and then it creates a folder called dGrowl master, and then within it another folder called dGrowl master, which I'm just going to rename to dGrowl for simplicity. Now if I open this up, these were all the files for the plugin. Now normally that would be the end of this part of it. However, I've noticed that with this plugin it doesn't work unless I take a few of these files and move them into a separate subdirectory. So what I'm going to do here is create a main subdirectory, and I know that there are 3 files here that I need to move into that subdirectory in order for this to work. I don't have a full explanation of why that was necessary, but I just noticed that it didn't work unless I reorganized them. And then I went back to the GitHub page, and I saw that these 3 files have a note saying that it was moved within the root repository. So this notification file, this notification.js, and this main.html. So something happened with the creator of the plugin that reorganized the files, but unfortunately that made it not work as it initially downloads. But if we reorganize them this way, then we can use it. So if I go back up one level, this folder dGrowl has all the files that I need for this plugin. So now I'm going to go to Domino Designer and create a brand new application. Put it on my development server. And I'm going to add anonymous to the ACL so that I can test without logging in. Okay, so now we've got a brand new blank database. Now I want to see the same database within Package Explorer. So from Package Explorer, I want to expand this, and what I really want to look at here is the web content folder. Okay, so this is where I need to put third-party plugin files in order to easily reference them from the application. So I'm going to go back to my Windows Explorer, and I can take this dGrowl folder and just drag and drop it directly into web content. So this puts these files within my NSF, and now I've got a dGrowl folder. If I expand that, I've got the files I included, and then this main subfolder here as well with the files that are there. So now these are available within my NSF. Okay, so the next step, I'm just going to create an XPage to start to use it. So we've made the plugin files available within the application, but we still have a few more steps to make them available to the page. So normally, if you're familiar with using dojo modules that are on the server but not automatically available to the XPage, you would come under Resources, you'd say Add Dojo Module, and you just type in the module name, and that would make it available to your page. But that's only the case if it's a module that already exists within the dojo implementation on the Domino server. In this case, we've added a third-party plugin directly into our NSF, so it's not going to know where to find it yet. So what we need to do is add a resource, a computed script resource, to make this available to our page by registering the module path. And we can't do it through this add JavaScript library because we need to actually compute the contents of the resource. So basing this on a method that's described in the Mastering XPages book, we're going to go here through all properties. We're going to go to Resources, click the plus button, and I'm going to add a script. Okay, I need to say client side is true, and then I need to compute this contents value here. Now this process is going to seem a little strange. It's definitely not something that I've done before, but essentially what we need to do is compute this contents, but what we need to do is we need to use client-side JavaScript and essentially build out a URL path to the main JavaScript file in our plugin. Now, client-side JavaScript is not an option here, so just to get this onto the page, I'm going to type A, enter B. I need to put 2 different lines on there so that when I switch to the source of the page, I get this CData block within the contents tag. Okay, so if you're familiar with this $ JavaScript syntax, this tells the server to compute whatever is in here on the server and then pass it through to client-side JavaScript. But in this case, I actually don't need any of that, so I'm just going to delete it. All I need is client-side JavaScript. As I mentioned, I just need to build a path out, under web content dGrowl. I need to get to this main.js file. Okay, so I'm going to copy in a snippet that will build that path. And the first 2 lines of this are just using client-side JavaScript to get the URL path. It splits it up into an array based on the slash and gets rid of the last value in that array, which is the current page name, because I just want the URL path up to the NSF. Okay, and then in this dojo register module path statement, I will put that URL back together up to the NSF and then add /dGrowl/main. So the main point here is that when you have this / from an NSF, that is starting you at this web content folder. Okay, so my URL will be up to whatever.nsf/dgrowl/main, because I really want to point at this main.js. However, there's kind of a quirk with this, that it automatically adds a .js for you when it's looking for the module path, so you do not need to put it in there, and if you do, it'll actually throw an error because it won't be building a proper URL. So this dojo.register module path, it's going to say there's a module, I'm calling it dGrowl, and here's the URL to it. Okay, so that's the extra step that we don't normally need, but is necessary in this case because we're adding a third-party plugin. So now I can go back to my page properties under resources the regular way and add a dojo module. And now I'm telling the page I'm going to use this module called dGrowl, and this name here corresponds with this module path that I've registered. Okay, so that's 2/3 of it. The last thing we need to do here is there is this dgrowl.css style sheet. We need that for the UI. Okay, now unfortunately I can't go through here the normal way to add a style sheet. I know that again slash starts with the web content folder, and I have a dgrowl folder and it's dgrowl.css, and it looks like it's going to let me add that, but it's really not. This is telling me it's an invalid URL. So I need to go back to all properties and add the resource that way. So again, if I click on resources, I can add a style sheet, and then I can just paste this same path right into the href property here. And now I can save my page, and we can go and verify that we've got what we need on this page. So I'm going to preview this. It's nothing on the page to see at this point. But if I reload this with the dev tools open, what I want to see is that, okay, it went and it got this dgrowl.css file, and I can see in here, that it actually found it, so that's good. It's got that file, and we also need the dgrowl main.js file. Now this one here is not the one that we added. There's another entry down here, so we can see this get main.js. We can see the request was made, and it came back with the code that it needed. So we know that the steps that we took made this module available to use on our page. So now we can start to use this. Now the next step we need to do is use a few lines of JavaScript to set up the message channels to make them available. So I'm going to copy another snippet in here, and this is just a straight pass-through script tag, and it says var dg, that's the name of the object I'm creating. It's a new dgrowl, and we've got this channels property. So the first one is the error channel, and that's position 1. The second one is the info channel, and that's position 2. So this will create the 2 message channels that we're going to have on our page to display messages. So now this is everything that we need to make this available. All we need now is a few buttons to start sending messages up. So I'm going to copy in another snippet with a few buttons, and we'll take a look at them. So this first button here, number 1, one line of client-side JavaScript. It says dg.addNotification. Now again, dg is the name of this variable that we instantiated up here. Okay, and addNotification is the method that's used to do that. So the first parameter is the main message, and then the second parameter is JSON that takes a few more properties. So we're telling it to go into the info channel and to have a duration of 3000. So this is in milliseconds. This is the lifespan of the message. So this is saying it's going to create an info message, and it's going to live for 3 seconds. So if let me save the changes here, go back and reload our page. Now if I click this first button, I get an info message that slides in, it lives for 3 seconds, and it goes away. Okay, I can click this button multiple times and put a bunch of messages in here, and as they go away, the messages will realign, and they'll go away when their time is up. So next we'll look at the second button here. Again, this is dg.addNotification. We've got a message. This time we've got the info channel. We've got the same duration of 3 seconds, but this time we're using the title property to show a message with a title. So if I come back here to test this, this message pops out, and we've got a bold message title at the top. Lives for 3 seconds and goes away. third button here creates an error message. So we can see again, dg.addNotification. Difference here being the channel is set to error, and then we're also setting the sticky property to true. Okay, so what this will do is it gives us an error message, so it's coded with different styling, and the message will stay there. It's not going away after 3 seconds because I did not give it a lifespan. I told it to be sticky. So it will stay there until I tell it to go away. And our last button here just demonstrates that we can send multiple messages at the same time. So this one button sends 4 messages at the same time. The first one is an error message that lives for 3 seconds. The second one is an error message that is sticky. And we have an info message for 3 seconds and an info message that's sticky. So we go back and test this, and we're sending 4 messages at the same time. Now we can see how the channel prioritization works as well here. See, there were 2 error messages, and then once that went away, the whole info channel moved up as well. So I can add this again. The sticky messages will stay, the transient ones will go. And I can keep adding messages, and we can see that as I add them, they show up within the correct channel, so that all the error messages stay together and they stay at the top. All the info messages stay together, they stay at the bottom. Okay, so this is great functionality, nice notifications. We've got some flexibility with the features here, and I hope you can find this useful in your applications. Now I do just want to take a moment to talk about reuse with this plugin. Now, as I mentioned, up until the point where we added the buttons to the page was everything that we needed to set it up. So you could easily reuse this in your applications if you just put that module registration and include the module and the style sheet, and then that script at the end that instantiates the message channels. If you put that into its own custom control, you can just drop that into your application layout, and then you can call messages and display them from anywhere in your application. So very, very easy to reuse. Now, if you'd like to see a live demo of this, I added a page with these same examples to my demo site. It's demo.accelerant.net. You can go there and you'll have the same buttons. You can try it out for yourself to see it on a live site. And I also just want to mention that this is set up in a way that it's flexible enough that you can add your own channels. So I have a corresponding blog post that will go with this that will show how I customize this to add a warning message channel as well as a confirmation message channel with the general warning and success message styles that you're used to seeing. So I hope you find this useful. Thank you very much for watching.
And that's his demo. I thank Brad for coming back on. He always brings stuff that I'm about to work on or I've just worked on or so. It just seems like we're kind of on the same path. Of course, he's got the answers, and I do not. So he's at the front of the bus at least. So anyway, thanks, Brad. I do appreciate it. And if you have any questions for me, here's my contact information, and I thank you for your time.